Imagine a time, millions of years ago, when Antarctica was not the barren, frozen desert we know today. Instead, it was a land of boundless green, a thriving tropical paradise, where vibrant forests stretched for miles and exotic creatures roamed freely. The land was warmer, and life flourished in ways we can scarcely imagine in the icy world we see now. Picture yourself walking through dense, fern-filled jungles, the air thick with the scent of ancient flowers. Towering trees with ginkgo leaves and conifers lined the landscape, and the sound of distant, unfamiliar creatures echoed through the canopy. This was no simple, lifeless wilderness. Antarctica was part of a larger supercontinent known as Gondwana, a vast landmass that connected continents now separated by oceans. During this time, Antarctica wasn't isolated in the far south. It was connected to South America and Australia, forming a land bridge that allowed species to migrate freely. But it wasn't just the plants that made this land so vibrant, it was the creatures. The oceans teemed with marine reptiles, their sleek bodies cutting through the waters, while the land above was home to colossal dinosaurs. Sauropods, the long-necked giants, towered over the lush forests, while theropods, the sharp-toothed predators, stalked the dense vegetation. In the skies, flying reptiles soared above, their leathery wings casting shadows on the ground. And beneath the surface, life in the oceans was equally extraordinary. Giant sharks and marine reptiles glided through warm seas, hunting and thriving in this vibrant environment. In fact, the seas, surrounding Antarctica, were once a cradle for many species of marine life that no longer exist, as the water temperatures were far warmer than today. However, as magnificent as this world seemed, it was not meant to last. An invisible force was building, a change that would soon tear apart the paradise that was Antarctica. The supercontinent was slowly drifting apart, and with it, the climate began to shift. The Earth itself was on the verge of a dramatic transformation, one that would change the course of history. The story of this transformation would be one of devastation, where life, as it had once been known, would be wiped from the land in a single catastrophic event. The beauty of ancient Antarctica, with its vibrant jungles and prehistoric creatures, was not to last forever. The climate was about to shift in a way no one could have predicted, and as we will soon discover, the end of this lush paradise would mark the beginning of something far colder and far more brutal. Long before the icy wasteland of Antarctica took shape, the continent was a cradle of life, where warm temperatures allowed a thriving ecosystem to flourish. Imagine a time when Antarctica was situated closer to the equator, before its gradual drift to the frozen south. The climate then was far warmer than it is today, and the continent was a vast tropical paradise. The temperature soared to around 12 degrees Celsius, comfortably warm, comparable to the climate of southern Europe today. This was a time when life on Earth was vastly different, and Antarctica was a central player in the planet's grand ecological drama. The jungles of Antarctica were a kaleidoscope of green, filled with towering trees, ferns, and diverse plant life that would be impossible to find there now. Dense conifer forests stood side by side with flowering plants, and rivers teemed with life, creating a rich ecosystem that supported a wide variety of creatures. The warm waters of the surrounding seas were rich with marine life, hosting an array of reptiles, sharks, and large sea creatures. One of the most astonishing aspects of this time was the presence of dinosaurs, massive creatures that roamed freely in the lush forests. From plant-eating giants like sauropods to predatory theropods that stalked the land, the island was teeming with life. The skies were alive with pterosaurs, their wingspan dwarfing modern-day birds. Life thrived here in abundance, not in isolation, but as part of a connected world that included South America, Australia, and Africa. The warm climate allowed not only dinosaurs to survive, but it also provided a sanctuary for many species of marine life. Sharks, some of which were the ancestors of the modern-day megalodon, patrolled the seas, while giant marine reptiles such as plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs glided through the warm waters. The oceans were a bustling ecosystem where life was rich, diverse, and interconnected. As time went on, Antarctica's landmass began to shift. The tectonic plates carrying the continent gradually moved south toward the poles. While this shift began slowly, it set in motion a chain of events that would change the entire planet's climate. The once tropical paradise was moving into a colder zone, where temperatures would begin to drop. The vibrant world of lush forests and warm seas was on the brink of extinction, and the clock was ticking. Soon, the warming temperatures would be replaced by chilling winds, and the land that once teemed with life would begin to freeze. The ecosystems that had flourished in the warmth of Antarctica's ancient jungles would be destroyed, replaced by a world of ice and snow. But before the cold arrived, the land would face one final moment of brilliance. The dinosaurs and other creatures would live their final days, unaware that a catastrophic event was about to alter the world forever. The asteroid impact was more than a cosmic disaster. It was a global reset. In an instant, the Earth was plunged into a state of devastation, with consequences so far-reaching that no creature, whether land-dwelling or marine, could escape the chaos that followed. The skies darkened and the temperature plummeted. The once thriving ecosystems of Antarctica, as well as those across the planet, were thrown into a cataclysmic spiral, leaving life to struggle in the aftermath. The immediate aftermath was a hellish landscape. Fires raged across the continents, igniting everything in their path. Oceans surged, sending tsunamis across the coasts, and massive quantities of sulfur and dust were launched into the atmosphere, blocking out the sun. This veil of darkness caused global temperatures to drop drastically. What followed was a period of freezing, where the warmth that had once given life to Antarctica was replaced by an unbearable cold that swept across the planet. For a brief moment, it seemed like nothing could survive this onslaught. Life that had once flourished in a warm, tropical paradise now faced extinction on an unprecedented scale. Yet, as time passed, something remarkable happened. The world began to heal. In the absence of light, the Earth slowly began to recover, but it would be a world irrevocably altered. The world as we know it today was on the horizon, but first there was a strange, unpredictable rebirth. In Antarctica, the once lush and green forests began to recede, but life did not disappear entirely. Slowly, new creatures began to emerge from the wreckage, adapting to the harsh new conditions. Though the temperature was cold, it was not yet as extreme as it would later become. During this time, the landscape began to evolve into something unlike what had existed before the impact. What remained were the survivors, species that had endured the initial disaster, now faced with a world still full of danger. Among the survivors were the terror birds, the largest predators to roam this new world. These birds, standing as tall as humans, were the true apex predators of the era. Their sharp beaks could tear through flesh, and their powerful legs enabled them to run at frightening speeds. These creatures had an uncanny resemblance to the dinosaur species of old, but they were far more dangerous, a living reminder of the creatures that had once ruled the Earth. The terror birds, with their savage hunting methods and fierce aggression, dominated the landscape in the early days after the impact. But the environment still held hidden dangers. As life began to reassert itself, more predators emerged. Crocodiles, their ancient ancestors lurking just beneath the surface of the waters, took advantage of the changing world. The seas surrounding Antarctica were now dominated by massive predators. The oceans were far from safe, teeming with sharks that hunted in the cold, murky waters, including species that were the ancestors of today's great white sharks. And yet, despite these dangers, life continued to hang on. Species adapted to the freezing cold, while others managed to survive in pockets of warmth left by the shifting climate. The landscape was harsh, unpredictable, and dangerous, but it was alive. The first signs of the new world began to emerge, with a mix of triumph and tragedy as creatures clawed their way forward into the cold, uncertain future. After the world-shattering impact, the Earth went through a profound transformation. The old world, one where dinosaurs had ruled the land, was gone. But life, as it has done for billions of years, began to rebuild and adapt to the changing conditions. While Antarctica had been a lush paradise teeming with life, it was now a place on the brink of a new age, a time when survival would depend on adaptation and evolution. As the dust settled and the atmosphere began to clear, the first signs of life began to appear again in Antarctica. But this new world was far different from the one before. The once thriving jungles and tropical seas had been replaced by barren, rocky terrain and cold waters. The few remaining species had to evolve quickly in order to survive in this harsh new environment. The early days of this new world were marked by fierce competition, as life began to reclaim its space. Among the first to dominate were the terrifying terror birds. These large flightless predators had once roamed parts of South America. but now they had found a new home in Antarctica. These birds grew to towering heights of nearly 2.5 meters, with powerful legs designed for running at incredible speeds. Their sharp, hooked beaks were perfect for tearing apart their prey. In a land where mammals and reptiles had to fight for survival, these terror birds stood as the supreme predators. While the terror birds dominated the land, the seas were equally teeming with dangerous creatures. The oceans surrounding Antarctica were filled with enormous ancient crocodiles. These reptiles, who had survived the impact and the harsh climate, thrived in the cold, murky waters. They were not the crocodiles we know today, but ancient cousins, reaching lengths of up to 7 meters. These apex predators roamed both fresh and saltwater, ambushing their prey with terrifying precision. The seas were a deadly battleground, where even the largest marine mammals faced a constant threat from these ancient creatures. But it wasn't just the predators that ruled this new world. Mammals began to make their presence felt in Antarctica. Species like the Australopithecus, massive herbivores resembling modern rhinoceroses, roamed the land, feeding on the sparse vegetation that could survive in the changing climate. These giant mammals, some of which weighed nearly half a ton, were the ancient ancestors of today's large herbivores. However, their survival was not guaranteed, as the terror birds and the harsh cooling temperatures made survival a challenge. As the Earth continued to evolve, new species of marine life began to thrive in the waters surrounding Antarctica. Ancient sharks, some of which were direct ancestors of the megalodon, prowled the deep seas. These apex predators were capable of growing up to 9 meters in length and hunted everything in their path, from large marine reptiles to the newly emerging marine mammals. The seas were as dangerous as the land, and any creature, whether a shark, a mammal, or a bird, was at risk of becoming prey. In the midst of this evolutionary explosion, Antarctica had become a land of extremes. Life struggled and adapted to the rapidly changing environment, but it wasn't easy. The struggle for survival became a battle against the elements, and the planet was still in the process of healing from the cataclysmic disaster that had reshaped it. But despite everything, life prevailed. The new world had emerged, one that was colder, fiercer, and more dangerous, but alive with possibilities. In the aftermath of the asteroid's catastrophic impact, the Earth began to cool. It wasn't an immediate change, but a gradual descent into a frozen world. While life had found ways to adapt to the harsh new climate, nothing could prevent the inevitable, the complete transformation of Antarctica into a land dominated by ice. Over millions of years, the continent that once flourished with tropical warmth and life was slowly but relentlessly overtaken by the expanding ice sheets. As the Earth's climate continued to shift, Antarctica's position on the planet also played a crucial role. The continent, which had once been connected to South America and Australia, was drifting farther south. The temperatures dropped dramatically, and with them the fate of the land was sealed. The once vibrant forests that had covered the continent began to shrink, replaced by tundra-like landscapes and barren stretches of land where only the hardiest of plants could survive. The ice began its slow but inevitable march across the continent. At first it was a gradual process, with pockets of warmth that allowed some life to cling on. But as the temperatures continued to fall, the ice sheets grew thicker and thicker, eventually blanketing the entire continent. It was as if the land itself was being swallowed whole by a force stronger than any living creature. Antarctica, once a cradle of life, had become a frozen wasteland. The oceans, which had once teemed with marine reptiles and giant sharks, were now dark and cold, devoid of the once thriving ecosystems that had existed there. Species that had once roamed the land, like the mighty terror birds and massive herbivores, struggled to survive. Their once fertile hunting grounds and abundant food sources began to vanish, replaced by icy expanses that provided little sustenance. The once dominant predators were now fighting a losing battle, unable to adapt quickly enough to the rapid changes in their environment. Slowly, the terror birds disappeared, along with the massive mammals and ancient crocodiles that had once ruled the continent. The planet's cooling temperatures sealed their fates, and the once diverse life forms that had called Antarctica home were no more. As the ice sheets grew, the few remaining survivors, those that had adapted to the increasingly cold conditions, were pushed into isolated pockets. Life continued to exist, but it was no longer the thriving, diverse ecosystem of the past. Instead, it became a harsh, unrelenting struggle for survival. The ice dominated everything, and the land that had once been so full of life became a desolate, frozen wasteland. By the time the Earth entered the full ice age, Antarctica had become the continent we know today, cold, lifeless, and covered in miles of thick ice. The transition from a lush paradise to a frozen tundra was complete, marking the end of an era and the beginning of the harsh, icy world that persists to this day. The echoes of the ancient creatures that once roamed this land are now only faint memories buried deep beneath the layers of ice forever preserved in time. Today, Antarctica stands as a frozen fortress, an unyielding wilderness of ice and snow that conceals the secrets of an ancient world. Beneath the towering ice sheets, the continent hides a wealth of history. Millions of years of life, evolution, and extinction locked away in its frozen tomb. The mysteries of this ancient land are buried deep, and though we have explored much of its surface, the true story of Antarctica's lost world remains hidden beneath layers of ice, waiting to be discovered. With modern technology, scientists have begun to peel back the icy layers that cover Antarctica, but the continent remains one of the most unexplored regions of the Earth. Beneath the thick ice sheets, the land holds an ancient record of its past, a record that could reveal new insights into the planet's climate, the life that once thrived there, and the dramatic shifts that led to its transformation. As we continue to study Antarctica's geology and fossil records, we uncover more and more about its ancient ecosystems, and each discovery raises new questions. Fossils of ancient plants and animals have been found in the rock layers beneath the ice, offering glimpses into the long-lost world of Antarctica. Some of the most remarkable fossils have been of species that lived during the warm periods, before the ice arrived. These fossils show that Antarctica was once home to a rich diversity of life, including towering trees, lush forests, and an array of creatures, from giant dinosaurs to strange prehistoric mammals. The evidence suggests that Antarctica was not just a transitional landmass, but a thriving hub of life, a far cry from the barren wasteland we see today. But as we look deeper into the ice, we are confronted with the reality that much of what once existed is lost to us. The fossils we uncover are often fragmented, and entire ecosystems remain hidden beneath the ice, their secrets locked away. Even with the advances in ice core drilling and satellite imaging, the vast majority of Antarctica remains a mystery. What other life forms might have existed here? Could there be more dinosaurs, more ancient creatures buried deep beneath the ice? Could there even be unknown species waiting to be unearthed by future explorers? The ongoing research into Antarctica's ancient past is a race against time. The ice is not just a barrier to exploration, it is also a powerful force of preservation. With every year that passes, the chances of uncovering more secrets become slimmer as the ice continues to advance, locking away the past even more securely. However, the discovery of even a single new fossil or a previously unknown species could rewrite what we know about the planet's history. One of the most tantalizing possibilities is the idea that life could have existed in Antarctica in ways we cannot yet fully comprehend. Could there have been species that adapted to the extreme cold in ways we can only imagine? Or are there ecosystems locked beneath the ice that could offer insights into how life might survive in the most extreme conditions on Earth, or even on other planets? As we continue to study Antarctica, we are reminded of the fragility of life and the power of nature to reshape the world. Antarctica's transformation from a warm, thriving paradise into a frozen wasteland is a testament to the unpredictable forces of nature. But beneath the ice lies a record of the planet's past, one that could hold the key to understanding not just the history of Antarctica, but the future of life on Earth. Will we uncover the full story of Antarctica's lost world? Only time will tell.